That's what I mean. Like, how do you go to the supermarket? How do you go visit a doctor if you're sick? Are those snow machines just moving constantly every single day, every second of the day? That's snow. There's snow everywhere. On the roof, in the driveway, on the roads. They're fully covered. Cars are fully covered. You just don't ever see that yet. Okay, welcome everyone back to another reaction video. Today we are checking out the worst winter storms in America. Here in New Zealand, I've never experienced a winter storm here in New Zealand. Do we get snow? Where I live, we don't get snow, but about 2 hours down south on a mountain called Mount Ruapehu, we get snow. But do we get snow where I live? We don't. Actually, we have had snow once. I was at high school and it snowed once for about 10 minutes. So today we're checking out the worst winter storms in America. Let's get straight into it.
Hey everyone, Steve here. Welcome back to Weatherbox. And today, in honor of the holiday season, it's gonna get a little cold. The odds of having a white Christmas vary wildly across North America, and everywhere you look, the data used to create maps such as this one is inconsistent at best. While it's true that you have less than a 5% chance of seeing snow on Christmas in Corpus Christi, it's not a guarantee that you won't. And with cyclical climatic factors such as La Nina, it does occasionally happen. Today we're gonna look at some of the worst historical winter storms in the US that resulted in a considerably white Christmas. Now, this is not a comprehensive list. I have 7 diverse snowstorms here for you today, and if you think I missed an important one, be sure to share it with us in the comments below. First is the Denver snowstorm of 1982. Wow. Denver gets a modest amount of snow each year, about 55 inches total.
Hey, so here, that's snow. There's snow everywhere. On the roof, in the driveway, on the roads. How does that even operate? How do you get to a supermarket? How do you drive your kids to school? Do kids go to school when there's a winter storm like this? It's hard for me to understand this because we just don't have anything like that over here. How does normal day life operate when there's a winter storm that looks like that? Because it looks like snow is everywhere.
About 55 inches total. Most of it actually falls in the months of March and April, but their snowfalls are usually much smaller amounts spread over a period of about 6 months. When you look at Denver geographically, it's a very interesting feat that a major snowstorm could occur there. It's located on the leeward side of the Rocky Mountains, which is significant. Westerly winds from the Pacific Ocean flow up and over the Rockies, and the moisture leaves the air as rain and snow on the western side. This creates what is known as a rain shadow on the eastern side, which is where Denver is located. So in order to have a lot of snow drop on Denver in a short period of time, you need winds to blow out of the east. This can happen one of 2 ways. The flow of air around high pressure systems is clockwise, while the flow around low pressure systems is counterclockwise. So if there is a high pressure system to the north or a low pressure system to the south, winds will be blowing out of the east. The next ingredient is moisture that can condense and freeze into snow as the air moves up the mountainside. This is where the low pressure system has the advantage. The general weather pattern that causes this involves moisture surging north from the Gulf over the Great Plains. Then, due to the warm Gulf air clashing with cold, dry Rocky Mountain air, a mid-latitude cyclone can spin up on the border, which moves that moist air counterclockwise around the low center. This moist air meets the cool air to the north, condenses as it rises up the mountain, and dumps feet of snow in the Denver metro. This is exactly what happened Christmas Eve 1982. What was forecasted to just be a couple inches of snow ended up as—
just to the right here, just to the right side, where I can see it. Is that a car underneath snow? That is fully buried. And I'm guessing these 2 people, I can see one person to the right, one person to the left, is shoveling up the snow. That's gonna take them like 2 months to shovel all that up. Personally, for me, I would think I'd just wait for the sun to come out to mount it all. How does that work? When the sun comes out during snow, does it mount it all? Because that is a lot of snow, man. Your cars aren't moving anywhere. That's what I mean. Like, how do you go to the supermarket? How do you go visit a doctor if you're sick? Wow.
couple inches of snow ended up as 2 feet of accumulation, with snowfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour on Christmas Eve. The wind chill caused by 50-mile-an-hour straight-line winds set at negative 35 degrees. Holiday travelers by the thousands were stranded at the airport for the entire day as 10-foot snow drifts made travel around the metro impossible. As unexpectedly devastating as it was, there were many stories of strangers who were stranded who came together to help each other get back home on Christmas Day. So you see what can happen when a strong mid-latitude cyclone forms to the south of Denver in the middle of winter. But the mid-latitude cyclone is on a mission, and that mission is to get across the continental US. So, as you can guess, it causes a lot of problems for people in its path, particularly on that northwestern side. A prime example of this is the winter storm of late December 2004.
Oh, wow.
Throughout these 4 days, 2 major weather systems collided to wreak havoc on the Ohio River Valley. First, you had a swath of Arctic air that was descending upon the Midwest from Canada. At the leading edge of this air mass, heavy snow fell in Minnesota and Wisconsin. But that pesky surface low of the same variety that caused the snow in Denver had developed over Texas. This thing flew to the east in 48 hours, gaining strength as it ingested moisture from the Gulf. That moisture was ultimately forced upward over the Arctic air, condensing into a giant diagonal line of snow, sleet, and freezing rain, a winter slurry that piled upon Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois over the course of 2 days. While Medora, Indiana saw a record 39 inches of snowfall, Ohio was decimated due to the ice.
Those cherries.
678,000 residents across the state lost power, mainly in Columbus. The Woodland Meadows subdivision, which was one of the largest apartment complexes in the United States for government-subsidized tenants, was hit the hardest. Affecting over 1,000 residents, the power was cut for multiple days, the boiler system failed, pipes froze and burst, and basements were flooded. None of this was ever repaired, and a few years later, the city voted to demolish the deteriorating 122 buildings. For those not living in the apartment complex, travel was impossible due to the mixture of snow and ice, and hundreds of flights were canceled. Interstates I-65, 70, 71, and 74 were closed for over 12 hours, and hundreds of motorists were stranded on I-64 in
So, when storms happen, it's said that motorists are stranded, right? You know, in those weather conditions and the extreme cold winter storm, and you're stranded out on the highway or on the road, surely people, you probably die, I would imagine? Because I don't know how you could stay in your car and, unless you have blankets or unless you just run your car, like, I mean, you run out of fuel, I guess, if you ran your car for a long time. I wonder how long you're stranded for. I'm guessing it's not a good situation to be in.
Indiana for over 24 hours. The storm resulted in $900 million in damage and 17 deaths. So far, we have seen an instance of a surface low developing in Denver as well as in central Texas. But how far south can these things bring snowfall? Could it happen in Houston literally the day after the snowstorm we just talked about? Yeah, 2004 was wild, apparently. After the low-pressure system exited Ohio, Arctic air spilled southward across the entire U.S. east of the Rockies. On Christmas Eve, temperatures were only in the mid-30s across central Texas, with the edge of the Arctic front sitting over Houston. And just south of that front, a surface low developed near San Fernando, Mexico, moving into the Gulf of Mexico. The temperatures were cold enough on that northern side that considerable snow was able to develop on Christmas Eve, dropping 4 inches of snow in Corpus Christi and a whopping foot of snow in Victoria. Wow. It was the first white Christmas ever for this area. Now, of course, all that snow melted within 48 hours because as that Arctic air lifted, that warm Gulf air came surging back. But what an incredible Christmas that must have been for southern Texans. Now, you probably have noticed a pattern here. These surface lows like to spin up along temperature boundaries on the southeastern side of a trough of cold air. Another place where low pressure systems like to develop is the Atlantic Ocean. Hell, that's what a hurricane is after all, just a very intense one. So picture this. A historic blast of cold air descends southeastward from Canada, covering the Great Lakes, the Deep South, and the Mid-Atlantic. What would happen if a surface low developed over the Atlantic, moved northward up the coast right up against the cold air? If you guess the largest snowstorm to ever occur in the southeastern United States, then you're probably familiar with the Christmas coastal snowstorm of 1989. The wave of cold air that covered the southeast was so potent that low temperature records were shattered. Houston Airport measured 7 degrees, High Springs, Florida measured 8 degrees, Wilmington, North Carolina measured 7 degrees, Even Key West hit 44 degrees. The cold wave devastated the vast majority of citrus crops across the southeast and even damaged agriculture in Mexico's Rio Grande Valley. Over the course of 2 days, 18 inches of snow fell in Wilmington, North Carolina, 8 inches in Charleston, South Carolina, 4 inches in Savannah, Georgia, and even flurries were spotted in Tampa, Florida. Lake Waccamaw to the east of Wilmington had actually frozen over, which was only the second time in the entire 20th century for that to happen. Now, this storm was technically a nor'easter, which is what they call a winter storm in New England that involves wind blowing out of the northeast. It does this because the wind blows counterclockwise in low pressure systems, and when they ride up the Atlantic coast, the snow and moisture blow out of the northeast. Nor'easters can get bad, like all-time historic bad. Due to the relatively warm temperature of the Atlantic Ocean in close proximity to cold land, these systems can get very intense. One historic nor'easter that occurred around Christmas was in December of 1969.
Wow,
to add another layer of complexity, the system started off as a surface low that spun up on the border of warm and cold air in Texas, traveled 1,200 miles across the US in 24 hours, and once it hit the Atlantic Ocean, it turned northward and became a nor'easter. It picked up a ton of moisture along the way, creating an environment of intense instability, even dropping a few dozen tornadoes in the deep south. But by the time it reached New Jersey, it stalled out, and that was bad news for New England. Upstate New York, mainly the Adirondacks and Vermont, saw over 30 inches of snow. Montreal saw 27, and everywhere else saw between 10 and 20 inches. Snowdrifts were as high as 30 feet in some cities. Boston, close to the low center, received 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts. The entire eastern half of the New York Thruway was closed on the 27th, deemed impassable. What may have been worse than the snow is the ice. Over 2 inches of ice accumulated on roofs, power lines, trees, and cars in Vermont. And the thing about...
Okay, I got a question here. So you said power lines. If you get ice on power lines, you still get power in your house? Also, another thing is, you know, I mentioned before that, I mean, it was beautiful. You had the white snow. The question I have is, when winter comes or like snowstorm comes, there's a lot of snow that comes into, you know, you guys' towns. Is that something that you guys look forward to? Do you guys look forward to winter coming and snow being here and like having snow on your driveway and on your cars? Like, how do you guys take that?
Ice, it's a lot heavier and denser than snow. Dozens of homes, industrial warehouses, and barns suffered collapsed roofs, killing several people and livestock. It was reported that this layer of ice stayed on surfaces for an entire month. While New York City escaped the brunt of this particular nor'easter, they are in no way immune to winter storms. Such is the case for the Great Blizzard of 1947. Because most weather systems in the US move from west to east, the Weather Bureau at the time had a system in place to identify and forecast weather systems that would strike New York from the west. So when an area of low pressure developed over the Atlantic Ocean and moved west towards the city, it took everyone by surprise. What was forecasted to be a cold day with flurries ended up as a non-stop intense snowfall with rates up to 3 inches an hour.
They're fully covered. Cars are fully covered. You just don't ever see that here. You just don't ever see that at all here. I can't get over it.
Inches an hour. These were huge snowflake clusters too, which meant one of two things. One, the temperature above the ground was near freezing, and two, there was very little wind. This wasn't like the 1969 nor'easter. It was a very peaceful yet heavy, crippling snowfall. Snowplows were not ready to go, and as a result, the 26 inches of snow that had fallen by the end of the day, December 26th, had stopped New York City. Across the way in New Jersey, it set the all-time record for most snowfall within a 24-hour period with 29.7 inches of accumulation. It's estimated that the unexpected snowfall was responsible for 77 deaths. We've covered snowstorms from mid-latitude cyclones and nor'easters, but there's one more important type of snowstorm specific to one area of the country: lake effect snow. I made a full video about lake effect snow a long time ago. Link is up here if you want to watch it. But November and December are usually the time when lake effect snow is at its peak. The Great Lakes are still relatively warm and unfrozen, and they can inject a lot of moisture into that dry, cold air, causing constant snowfall on the lee side of the Great Lakes. Buffalo just so happens to be in the exact spot where lake effect snow is maximized from westerly winds, and this can result in catastrophic multi-day snow events. This particular event was caused by a surface low that developed in northern Colorado and moved eastward on a trajectory theory that caused the Arctic air to blow at the exact angle of the major axis of Lake Erie. So in other words, directly parallel to the length of the lake, funneling the moistened air into Buffalo and causing 5 days of nonstop snow. By the end of the day on December 28th, 82 inches of snow fell at Buffalo International Airport. The normal snow accumulation for the entire winter season is 93 inches, so essentially—
Look at that, just above the car, is it a lady shoveling? That's like a perfect, just super smooth over it. It's so cool. I love the snow on the trees too. It's another thing I must have mentioned here. Love the snowy look on the trees.
Snow accumulation for the entire winter season is 93 inches, so essentially the city saw almost an entire year's worth of snow in just 5 days. It blew all previous snow records out of the water. What's even more ironic is—
Are those snow machines just moving constantly every single day, every second of the day, just constantly back and forth on all the roads? Is that kind of how these snow machines, because I'm guessing as soon as they go over it, you virtually look back and you've already got a couple of centimeters of snow on the road, so.
The previous month, November, was the first November on record that Buffalo saw no snow whatsoever. The city was declared a disaster area and the National Guard was sent in with bucket loaders to help unearth the city. But because it's Buffalo and the people and the infrastructure are well seasoned for an intense winter snowstorm, the entire event only resulted in 2 deaths. About every 5 to 10 years, Buffalo has seen an intense multi-day lake effect snow event, and I'm sure you remember the one that happened this year in November as well. As for a white Christmas this year, we have several systems sweeping through the upper Midwest and Great Lakes region right now, so we'll see if we get that white Christmas.
Awesome, I really enjoyed that video. Something a little bit different from what we've been reacting to so far. Just off the top of my mind, you know, I've asked a few questions. Another question I have is, when it's snowing, let's say I'm driving down the street. Let's say I'm going 50 kilometers, but let's say 50 miles per hour. What should you be driving when it's wintertime and there's snow? Should you be going 30 miles an hour? Should you be going 20 miles an hour? What's kind of like the common rule to stay under when it is snowing and I guess when it's icy? But other than that, what this video helped me to understand is America's got very extreme everything. You guys have the tornadoes, you guys have heavy winter storms, you know, you guys have football and the crowds, like everything is so extreme in America. It's so next level, which is awesome. Like that's cool. But man, it's just such a different world over in America compared to here. It's hard for me to understand that you have cars that are fully covered in snow. If you enjoyed this video and want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to check out my playlist, click here.